Would you like to sleep better, have more energy, or improve your mental health? Want to improve your cardiovascular health, stand a little bit taller, maybe lose a few pounds? If you said yes to any one of these things, then you may want to consider doing a 20,000 step challenge. I just challenged myself to do a 20,000 step challenge for 7 days, and it might surprise you to find out how it went. So stick around, because I'm going to share with you what I did, how I did it, the tools I used to get me there, and whether or not the 20,000 steps a day is going to become a normal part of my wellness routine. But before we get started, my name is Carrie Stone, and this is Carry On, where we talk all things money, movement, and mindset. And today, we're talking movement, because the CDC says that the average American only walks between 3,000 and 4,000 steps a day. So they are considered sedentary. There's a lot of reasons that people have become inactive, but that needs to change because the CDC has discovered some pretty amazing statistics. The CDC says that the physical activity level in the US has been flatlining or declining drastically over the last decade. 1 in 5 adults in the US is considered inactive. These were some really interesting statistics. In the US, the South had the highest prevalence of inactivity, being at 27.5% among adults, followed by the Midwest, which was 25.2%, the Northeast at 24.7%, and lastly, the West at 21%. They also discovered that physical activity can prevent 1 in 10 premature deaths. And they have found that physical activity benefits everyone, which is why the CDC has started an initiative, Active People, Healthy Nation. Their goal is to help bring safety and convenience to activity among all races and all classes. They want to help 27 million Americans to become more active by the year 2027. I'm all for that. By doing this, their hope is that they will improve overall health, they will improve quality of life, and they will help lower healthcare costs. And people, we need to lower our healthcare costs. So CDC's current recommendations for physical activity is 150 minutes a week, which if you break it down, it's either 30 minutes 5 days a week or 22 minutes a day. But for me and my body, 30 minutes a day does not keep the fat away. So I'm a believer that more activity than that is very much needed. So the CDC is all for more movement and less sitting, but I don't think the 150 minutes a week is really going to cut it, which is one of the reasons I did a 20,000 step challenge. Now, before we get in too deep, let me just give a little disclaimer and say, I am not a doctor or a nurse or a medical professional or a physical fitness guru or a personal trainer or anything like that. I am simply a woman who has had to fight for the right to be alive and to be at this level of health over the last 14 to 20 years. And in that, I have learned a lot, and I have become obsessive about being healthier and having movement and doing all I can to grow old gracefully and beautifully and in a way that I can still be active. So why do a 20,000 step challenge, you may be asking? It has almost been 10 years since I got my very first Fitbit, which I found recently. My first Fitbit. I got this in December of 2014, and I got it because I was pretty bedridden at that point, and my doctor wanted to see how much movement I was getting. And the first day that I wore this, I logged in 1/4 mile for the entire day. So basically, I was going to the bathroom and back to my bed and down the hall to check on my kids and back to my bed. But this little thing, this little device, my first little Fitbit, it changed how I viewed movement. And that's when I became obsessive about steps. And that knowledge of how little movement I was getting actually is what got me moving and got me working on my body and getting out of bed and trying to improve my physical life. And so I can remember there were times that, I would have to hold on to walls and use my walker, my cane, or grab doors and things like that. But I would force myself to get up and move around the house just to up my step count. And that was 10 years ago that I was walking a quarter of a mile. And now I just finished a 20,000 step challenge. So yay for progress. But one of the reasons that is because I think you should always try to do hard things. I think there's so much value in reaching beyond where you are and pushing yourself to try to go a little further. And so when my kids were in piano, when they were young, they had this great teacher who pushed them and who always gave them music just beyond. And so they grew and they flourished in piano and they loved taking piano. And then we moved and they ended up with teachers who didn't take me seriously when I said that. And so they wouldn't give them harder music and they wanted all the kids to just love playing piano. Well, my kids had loved playing piano and they lost that love because it was no longer hard. It was no longer something they were working towards. And so they lost a lot of their ability. And I think that there's just so much value in testing ourselves and seeing whether we can do harder things. So that was my main drive for doing the 20,000 step challenge. The other thing was I wanted to say I did it. I just wanted to check it off my list and say I did it. And I had the goal of losing a pound or two and maybe an inch or two. And, there's always that goal, especially as a woman over 50. We're always trying to lose that 5 or 8 pounds. Seriously, what is with that? But those are my goals. That's why I started the 20,000 step challenge. Now, I had a plan going into this challenge. My plan was to count my calories daily and log them on MyFitnessPal. I planned to weigh and measure myself. I was going to weigh myself every day during the challenge and then measure in the beginning and the end, which I did. I wanted to add outside walks. That was my goal for this challenge. I had just recently started using a weighted vest and I wanted that to be incorporated into my 20,000 step challenge. I had planned to do a recording every day, just, to have for this video as proof that I was doing this. That did not really happen every day because, you'll find out as I go on. So I had things in place that were really important to me to incorporate into this challenge of 7 days. And the other thing that I had planned was to ask you if you could subscribe, and hit that notification bell below if you haven't already subscribed to my channel. And if you have, could you just leave me a comment below about what challenges you're looking into and the things that you want to do that are just beyond where you are right now? I would love to hear about it. So obviously, whenever you are approaching a challenge, you're going to have things that don't exactly go the way you want them to. And I had those things. I had the weather playing against me. I happened to start this challenge when the rainy season started here, and it was rainy and windy. And yeah, I had one good day that I could get out and walk, and that was my favorite day of the challenge. So I had the weather against me. Also, I started the challenge right after Halloween. So even though I don't celebrate Halloween and I don't have candy in my house, at my empty nest job, they do celebrate Halloween and there was candy and a couple of pieces might have fallen in my mouth. Things happen. It was an accident. I fell on it. I don't know. You make up the excuse, but it might have worked against me a little bit. My weighted vest, although I'm loving using a weighted vest, I found if I tried to use it on my treadmill time, it was making me notice each minute passing. And it made my treadmill time really hard. So I had to adjust a little bit with how much I was using it. And then the last couple of days, it started really bothering my knee. I think the 20,000 steps plus the extra weight, it was just too much on my knee. And so I had a little bit of a challenge with my knee that I had to tend to a little bit. But I just adjusted, made it work. And then finally, my work schedule. I only work 2 days at my empty nest job. But I will say, when you're trying to do 20,000 steps in a day and you're working a job where you're on your feet all day, those days I really struggled. I would come home and still need like 8,000 steps and just go, I'm going to die today. So that was a challenge. But my next movement challenge, I am going to do on a week where I'm not doing my empty nest job. So that'll go so much better. So what things did I use to help me along with this challenge? Well, first of all, I used my scale that I love. I love that my scale links to an app and I'm able to see my water, my weight, my protein, all of the basic runnings of your body show up on the scale reading. And so I find that really helpful, and I like that. So everything that I used for this challenge that I mentioned in this video, I will put information and links for them in the description below. So you can find everything down there. Next, the thing I love and fell in love with 10 years ago is my Fitbit. I love my Fitbit. I love that it tells me how my sleep was. I love that it tells me how many steps I'm getting, how many calories I'm burning. When I get into different zones, it tells me that. You know, I'm a huge fan of Fitbit, obviously. 10 years, people. 10 years I've been buying Fitbits. Love them. I probably replace them every 2 years or so. So I'm always excited for when I get my next upgrade. I did use my weighted vest. I just had to change how I was using it a little bit, and I chose to not use it on the treadmill during the 20,000 step challenge. But I'm loving my weighted vest, and I'm really learning a lot about that. And I will do a video about that down the road once I have a 30 to 60 day story with it, because I really want to have a good experience with it first before I tell you about it. The treadmill, my good old treadmill, that thing has been with me for a long time, and I don't know what I would do without it. And I especially don't know how I would have done a 20,000 step challenge during rainy season without that treadmill. So I'm very grateful for that. You can't possibly get that same treadmill now, but I will find one that is similar and share that with you. But mine has lasted, it's totally worth the money, and I am very excited that I have it. Next thing I was so excited about is my standing desk with the desk treadmill. I would not have accomplished the 20,000 steps a day without my standing desk and treadmill. I got them at Prime Days in October. I am so excited about them. I will be doing a video about my standing desk and treadmill when I have a longer story, but so far I am in love and I am accomplishing so much more, and I don't hate working on my computer anymore. So those have been just vital, and I cannot imagine trying to do a 20,000 step challenge without them. I just don't even know how you do it. The next thing that I used was my rebounder. Every night after dinner, I would just put on something funny on the TV and would just do my rebounder for 30 minutes. And I got a lot of my steps and movement that way. So that was really helpful. And then, of course, your shoes matter. They really do. What I learned from my 15,000 step challenge was that you want to switch your shoes off and on. Like, don't keep the same ones when you're doing long walks. So I switched between my Hokas and my Brooks, and I will share that information too. And then make sure you're using good socks. I love Sockwell, and I will share that with you. So how did I do this? How did I get 20,000 steps a day for 7 days? First of all, planning. You can't go into this haphazardly and not have an idea of how you're going to get things done. Planning matters. And one of the important things of planning, get on your treadmill first thing in the morning. So start first thing in the morning. Get an hour off. Just get it done. You start the day with 6,000 steps, and then you can space the 14,000 out for the rest of the day. But it starts you in a better frame of mind. You're not just spending the day trying to catch up. And as I said before, the standing desk with the treadmill, that also was so incredible, because I could just stand there and work and I'm moving the entire time. Now, when I'm watching something, I could up the speed more, but when I'm actually trying to write or type or things like that, I have to lower the speed down some. So you're not getting as many steps, but you're still getting steps. So that was really important. And then I had a set time to do the rebounder every day. I just did that every night after dinner. And I paced whenever I was on the phone with anyone. I would just move. I would just walk, pace around the house. And doing all of those things helped me to get the 20,000 steps out of the way. There's a lot of pros to getting movement. One thing I have noticed is that I am just more comfortable now standing and being up on my feet than I am just sitting for long periods of time. I really just don't want to have to be sitting and doing nothing. One of the big pros I saw with the 20,000 step challenge was my sleep. I have a tendency to wake 4:30 in the morning. I didn't wake, I don't think the whole 7 days, I don't think I woke at 4 or 4:30. If I did, I forgot and I fell back asleep. But I even slept later than 6 a couple of days, which is very unlike me. I am usually up and on the treadmill 6 o'clock in the morning. So it was very unlike me, but I was exhausted. I had forgotten how tired I had gotten during the 15,000 step challenge. And I don't know why, but I was shocked that I got so tired for the 20,000 step challenge. So, yeah, my sleep was pretty darn good. It really does improve your sleep. My mood overall was pretty good. Now, had I scheduled the walk when the weather was good and I could get outside to get more of my movement, my mood would have been a lot better. The day that I was able to walk outside, I just felt like the king of the world. And I did feel by the end of the 7 days, I was like really kind of struggling with boredom from the walks because it was all done inside. So it would have helped had the weather been nicer, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it's probably not as good on the mood as it would be if you're outside getting fresh air and sunshine. Another pro was a feeling of accomplishment. I felt so good on Monday when I was able to say, I did it. I actually completed the task and I did the 20,000 steps a day for 7 days, even though it was hard, even though I was tired, and even though I had to really think through each day and figure out how I was going to get all the steps. I still did it, and I loved that sense of accomplishment. And if you've been waiting to know whether I lost weight in inches, why, yes. Yes, I did. I dropped 2 pounds from the 7 days and 1 inch off of my waist. I don't quite know why, but there it is. But I do know that I was burning between 23 and 2,700 calories a day. And I was eating between probably 17 to 1,900 calories a day. So I should have lost some weight. So I did enjoy that, like being able to think a little less about everything I was eating because I knew I was burning more calories. But when it comes to the calories, let me just tell you, things don't always seem fair. What I've learned is you burn more calories the more you're up and moving. Even if that means that your movement is slower and maybe not as aggressive, you're still going to burn more calories just by not sitting. So my most aggressive workout day was on Sunday. And I had to really think through Sunday because I had church and choir practice and then dinner at a friend's house. So I got up and I did over an hour first thing in the morning. And I was aggressive with that time because I had to move fast and get as many steps as I could. Then I came home from church and choir practice and I aggressively did another hour and a half. And then I came home from dinner and did 35 minutes on the rebounder. And I burnt fewer calories that day than I did any other day, yet I worked out harder. So let that be a lesson. You can't just go to the gym, do a big major workout, and then go sit on your bum all day. You're not going to burn the kind of calories and fat that you think you're going to by doing that. So movement matters, like just being active, cleaning your house, doing your laundry, talking on the phone, and moving about while you're doing so. Just make sure you're keeping your body moving because that's what it likes and that's what makes it happy. So it doesn't seem fair, but it is reality. At least that's what my numbers show on my Fitbit. So the cons for doing the 20,000 step challenge were trying to fit it all in. I had to really think about it. I had to really plan everything. And some days it was just annoying. So it was a lot of extra work. I was also incredibly exhausted. Now, whether that was the time change and the weather change and all of that too, and the fact that I couldn't get outside and exercise, I think that contributed to how much I was feeling the exhaustion. But I was exhausted. I was absolutely exhausted. I got really off balance with my life and my schedule. So there were several nights where I didn't have all my steps and it was 7:30, and I have a pretty strict rule of settling down at 7:30, washing my face, reading my book, doing all that stuff. And I was still on the rebounder trying to get all of my steps in. And so I did find it really messed up my schedule for the week. And it caused me to not get my other exercises done, like my core exercises and weightlifting, because I was so focused on getting all my steps because it took so much time to get 20,000 steps in a day. So I felt like I got very off track with a lot of my goals during that 7-day period. And, my knee. I don't know what happened with my knee. It can be persnickety, and it got persnickety. So I'm still nursing it a little bit, but I'm still moving. I've just learned when it gets like that, don't do inclines, don't do as much of the extra weight on it. So I'm not wearing the weighted vest all the time now like I was. And so I'm trying to just give it time to just heal up and get happy again. So I think some 15,000 step days will help it to get balanced back to where it likes to be. But that was it pretty much with the cons. I wasn't a whole lot hungrier. I did notice I was a little bit hungrier, but I didn't see that kind of change. And that's one of the things I love about walking is you don't see those extreme changes. I do feel like the more you walk, the taller you stand. And I do notice the difference in posture, how I carry myself, even how I walk into a room. There's just a lot of positive change that comes with just being an active person who is moving a lot. So will this continue? Will 20,000 become my new norm the way 15,000 did? Absolutely not. What I would like to see, I would like to see 2 or 3 days a week that are 20,000 step days. But I felt like trying to get it in every day was almost putting a little too much pressure on my cortisol levels, and I didn't feel like that was healthy for me. So I feel like as long as I have my empty nest job, 20,000 steps is not going to be a normal thing for me. And although I love it, and I always feel so accomplished when I have a 20,000 step day, I don't think it'll be my new normal. Who knows? Maybe that'll change. But for now, I'm happy with my 15,000 steps. Should you try a 20,000 step challenge? Well, the CDC says that if you're walking less than 5,000 steps a day, you're inactive, and you should start there with 5,000 steps. Then move on to being slightly active at 7,500 to 9,000 steps. And then an active person would be 10 to 12,500 steps. So I would say if you are at the 10 to 12,500 steps, absolutely. Maybe you want to try a 15,000 step challenge first, but then move on to the 20,000 steps. I think the most important thing first is find out what your baseline is. Get yourself a Fitbit and figure out how many steps you're actually getting in a day. And then just keep growing that. Just keep going just beyond where you are and keep pushing for something more. Keep testing yourself and keep doing hard things, because life is better when we push ourselves, when we learn what we're made of, when we don't just accept where we are, but we keep just trying to get better. So where are you with your physical activity, and where do you want to go with it? And what challenge could you do that'll push you just beyond where you are today? I would love it if you'd share in the comments below what challenges you're going to take on and what things you're doing to improve your physical activity. And if you're not quite ready for a 20,000 step challenge, but maybe you're ready for a 15,000 step challenge, check out this video right here. And until next time, carry on.